What's going on, Eagles Nation? It's Shaunak Nadkarni back with another podcast. I'm here today with BG's own Shamus Clancy. Shamus, what's going on, man?
What's up, man?
Yeah,
Finally good that we caught up and got on the pod. We've been talking this over for a bit, so I'm glad I finally got to hop on.
yeah. It's a pleasure having you. Today we're doing a schedule prediction, and we're gonna break down each game and see what record we come out with. So we're gonna get started with week 1. Obviously, we got Washington. Name has not been determined yet, but they are on the schedule. We're playing at FedEx Field. It's pretty straightforward. I think the Eagles take a win here. The defense is really beefed up, but they haven't done much offensively. I know they have Terry McLaurin and Dwayne Haskins, and I'm looking to see if Dwayne Haskins takes that next step this year. But he didn't really show me that much last year. And with the new coach, Ron Rivera, it's going to be interesting to see what Washington puts together this year, but not too many expectations. So it's a 1-0 start for me.
Yeah, I think Rivera is a good hire for them, where they've been such an unstable franchise for nearly 2 decades. And while he's a retread, he does have a commanding presence to him. Even though coaching hires skew to younger, offensive-minded, quarterback-minded head coaches, even as a defensive-minded coach, I still think he's a pretty good hire that will bring some level of respectability to the team. At the same time, if your quarterback's Dwayne Haskins, I feel like your ceiling is rather low. He doesn't inspire any confidence in me whatsoever. He just seems like the type of, first-round quarterback you have for 2 or 3 years, then you realize he's nothing and you draft someone else and do the whole process over again. Mm-hmm. So definitely have to agree with the Birds win there.
Yeah, I mean, they've been talking a lot about the quarterback position. I know there was some talk about them possibly getting Tua this year, but they didn't. So they're obviously looking to keep Dwayne for the foreseeable future. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so what do we got for week 2?
All right, so we have the Rams coming to Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field. As the city announced today, there will be no fans at these games, even if they go on as scheduled, which to be determined. I'm increasingly pessimistic. Mm-hmm. But we have Sean Pretty Boy McVay coming to Philadelphia for the first time in his career against Doug Peterson, who he is 0-2 against in his career. Now, I just want to say, when people compare Doug Peterson and Sean McVay, that a couple years in the Super Bowl, as you may know, Doug Peterson scored 41 points with a backup quarterback against Bill Belichick's defense, maybe the greatest defensive mind of all time. The following year, Sean McVay, going against the same coach and same defense, scored 3 points. Am I right in saying that?
Yep, 3 points.
3 points. Just putting all that aside for a second, I think that the Eagles stomped them. I think they get off to a nice 2-0 start. We'll see how the Rams adjust to their schedule coming east. Even early in the season, it might not matter as much, but we'll see with the Rams team. I think they're due for – last year they had some post-Super Bowl regression, and that division's tough. I don't see them as a top – I could see them finishing last in that division with the way I think the Cardinals are going to make a leap with Murray this year, and Seattle's strong. The 49ers are coming off the Super Bowl appearance themselves. So not super optimistic about the Rams this year, and I think the Doug P. X factor going up against them, I think he gets a little hype about that. I think the team does too, given how talked about that Rams team has been over the last couple of years, has overshadowed the Eagles, even though the Eagles have made 3 playoff appearances in that time span as well. So feeling a win.
Yeah, for sure. That's a win for me too. Just considering numerous factors. Like you said, them coming on the East Coast and playing on the East Coast schedule. I mean, the game's at 1, but for them it's 10 a.m. on the West Coast. So love that. And it's another, like you said, an offense that's regressed a lot. Jared Goff took a big step back last year. Now they don't have Todd Gurley. Replacing him with Cam Akers through the draft. It's not easy for a rookie running back to really make a huge impact. So yeah, that's a win for me. So 2-0 start is pretty strong for the season, and I think they're just gonna keep moving forward with that strong start, because they got the Bengals coming into town the following week, and I mean that's a win because again, rookie quarterback. I know Joe Burrow's got a lot of high expectations, but for a rookie quarterback to come in and play Jim Schwartz defense, it usually doesn't work out too well. And he that offense just has a lot of work to do, in my opinion, and the defense is completely flat for Cincinnati. So that one's going to be a blowout for me, and they're off to a 3-0 start.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati's going to be in for some trouble that day. I think Burrow, while probably will have a great career, isn't going to be that by his third game as a pro, and especially on the road, even though we don't really have the fan atmosphere that comes with a typical home field advantage, something the Eagles have definitely fed off during the Jim Schwartz era. I think that, defensive line up front, that pass rush is going to eat them alive with, what they have there already between Hargrave, Malik Jackson, Fletch, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. Who knows, maybe a Jadeveon Clowney or Vinny Curry coming back as well. I think they have a lot of depth there. And, Cincinnati's offensive line doesn't strike a lot of confidence in me either. So feeling a big Eagles win right there. I think Burrow struggles, maybe throws a pick or two. Miles Sanders closes it out in the second half, easy win.
Yeah, definitely. So 3-0 start, probably going to be first in the division at that point. But then we got a real test, Eagles 49ers in primetime.
I had them winning this game. I know that's a game a lot of people have penciled in as a loss, and I obviously have some losses penciled in. But I think being on a Sunday night schedule helps, where they're not getting too crazy of a West Coast schedule going west. It's not too much. It doesn't hamper them as much if they're playing, 5 o'clock, 5:25 local time in the Bay Area. We talked about it. We saw it last year with the Rams, where there is a little bit of Super Bowl hangover, some regression. And while I still think they might be better than the Rams are this season, and they are, do have whatever concept of a home field advantage you want to talk about. And I think that skews things now, because what even is a home field advantage if there are no fans there? But, coming down to it, I trust Doug Peterson more than I trust Kyle Shanahan, though he's clearly one of the, up and coming, maybe, he's a top 10 coach in the league. And then, I think Wentz is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Their defense obviously has a lot of talent. Be interesting to see. I'm not exactly sure what side of the ball Nick Bosa lines up on, but if Nick ends up getting matched up with Andre Dillard, that's something that concerns me. I'm not sure how much confidence the Birds themselves have in Andre Dillard, given that Jason Peters has just been re-signed today, that we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Obviously, they signed him with the idea that he's going to play right guard, but I could obviously see a situation where he plays left tackle at some point this season, whether it's through injury. If Dillard struggles, he doesn't seem like the player they expected him to be when they drafted him. So that's one matchup that, if this season goes on his plan, I'll be really keened in on who is blocking Bosa. Especially, they do have obviously a wealth of defensive talent around him too. So it's not going to be an easy game for the Birds, but I think it would be more in the lines of a defensive Eagles could win, 2014, 2017, 17, 13, something like that.
Yeah, no, sure, for sure. This is one of those games I have as a swing game, and it's, depending on how they show up that day, could either be a win or a loss. For the 49ers, I mean, they're due to lose their second running back in this offseason. They already lost Breida to the Dolphins. Now, Mostert requested a trade, so they're down to Tevin Coleman. So what was once their strength might be their weakness now, because, in that NFC Championship game, especially against the Packers, I mean, they killed them on the ground with over 200 yards rushing, and that was pretty much how they played out the whole season, keeping the ball on the ground and giving Garoppolo very limited snaps to actually win the game. And we saw that in the Super Bowl too, when Garoppolo actually got the ball in his hands and had to make plays. He couldn't, and they lost. So that, I think, between the time that the schedule got released and to now, my feeling about that game has gotten a lot better. But that defense is still really good, and they added a lot. So that's going to be a loss for me for now. I think, like I said, it's a swing game for me. It's going to change depending on how the season plays out. So that's going to be 3-1 for me, 4-0 for you. But regardless, still both very good starts.
I'll take 3-1.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So up next we got a little interconference action. We got Eagles Steelers, and this is going to be interesting because Big Ben is coming back, and this is a defense that almost got them into the playoffs just solely based on the sheer turnovers that they were forcing and how little yardage they were giving up. So this is going to be a tough game, especially considering the fact that um, now that they have an actual quarterback and not, Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges, they can actually run a little bit of offense. However, I think our offense is still pretty good, and this is an offense that can line up against a really good defense. So I think I'm going to give them a win here. This is a tough game. I think it'll probably be an upset, but I have them winning in Pittsburgh.
I actually have this as their first loss. I think that defense is stout. I was kind of critical of the Minka Fitzpatrick trade when they made it. I thought they gave up a little too much for them, but he played. I mean, he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate down the stretch last year, and as you said, their defense almost single-handedly brought them to the playoffs. Big Ben, he's pushing 40 if he's not there already. He's old. He's decrepit a little bit. He's often injured, but at the same time, I still think that when he's out there, he's a competent quarterback and has the ability to have above average play, as we saw with him in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like it's a road game. I already have them pegged as going 4-0. That feels like a loss on the road. Seems like a game where in the fourth quarter they're down by 10 and they're driving a little bit, and Wentz throws like one of those rage interceptions, and Steelers go down, kick a field goal, take a true 2-score lead, and never look back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This 3-game stretch here, starting from the 49ers down to next week, and we'll get into next week a little bit more, but this is a really tough 3-game stretch, and the schedule actually has a couple of really hard stretches. So, with that being said, we're both at 4-1. 2 different games that we have losses at, but the outcome is still the same, 4-1. And heading into next week, I would say this is the toughest matchup of the season. We got the defending MVP, Lamar Jackson, coming into Philadelphia. I have that as a loss. I'm sure most do. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory. This is an offense that was blowing out teams left and right last year. And if you got off to a bad start against Lamar Jackson, it was pretty much over. This man can run, he can pass, and contrary to popular belief, he's not a running back. So if this defense can't hold him within the first quarter, I think it's going to be a pretty long day for us. And I don't think it's going to be a pretty game either. So that's a loss for me.
Yeah, I think looking at the way the Eagles have struggled in 2018 with Cam Newton and for the last half dozen years with Russell Wilson, whether it's the Jim Schwartz era or even before that, I feel like they're really not equipped to stop a mobile quarterback for several reasons, whether that's the weakness in the linebacker core. Now, I'm not one of those people like, oh, they need to draft a linebacker in the first round. I'm usually someone who just eschews the linebacker position and, says, oh, we'll figure it out. And while their defensive line is really stout in the run game, those linebackers, whether it's in a QB spy situation, whether they try to use a safety as a QB spy, they try to mix things up, try to disguise some things, they still have that type of power running game that's really dependent upon the second level of the Eagles defense, filling gaps, getting to the hole, getting to the ball carrier, and wrapping them up. And I don't really think they have the talent to do that defensively. While secondaries improved, we have even more reinforcements on the defensive line, but, I'm not someone who's saying the linebacker core is the reason they're going to have a bad season or anything like that. But I think for that specific game, that specific matchup, the linebackers are toast. If Lamar gets the lead, they're running the crap out of them at the end of the game. They have Mark Ingram. They have new draftees in there. They're talented. They might be due for a little bit of regression. Like I keep using this phrase, but a lot of times a team does super well the next year. Things get figured out. Like we have an entire season of Lamar Jackson starting QB film out there, not just the half season, a couple, some of the games when he did a couple trick plays back in 2018. We have a full 15-game schedule plus a playoff game of Lamar Jackson on tape. So the best defensive coordinators in the league are going to adapt better than they did last year. Jim Schwartz, for all the times I criticize him for all the kind of crap he gets in Philadelphia, I still think he is an above average defensive coordinator in this league. But Lamar Jackson, there's some good storylines right here. Two quarterbacks that were disciples under Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. No, Jim's the Michigan guy. It's John Harbaugh, former Eagles special teams coordinator under Andy Reid. He's won a Super Bowl. Doug's won a Super Bowl as well. Now Andy has one. I think that's kind of a cool storyline, him coming back to Philadelphia. You definitely see the beat writers taking a story or two about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we both have that as a loss. Now, I'm really interested to see how Davion Taylor is going to play out in this game. You know, like you said, the linebackers are going to be huge against Lamar Jackson. And the linebackers haven't been a point of emphasis in a Jim Schwartz defense. You know, he's mostly focused on the front five. But, you know, they finally took a linebacker in round 3. And just watching Davion Taylor's tape, he is just so fast and athletic. And I think he could actually find a way to match up against Lamar Jackson because they're both very athletic. So, but regardless, I have that as a loss. But if there's one guy that can make an impact, it's Davion. So yeah.
I think relative to Davion on the team, because there's no offseason, because he seems so raw as a player for all the athletic skill that's there, I still think he's really raw in terms of pure football talent. He didn't play football in high school for some religious reasons, which I totally respect. But I think he's still a little bit raw in terms of football IQ, you know, how to truly play the game at a pro level. And it's a shame that the offseason has gone the way it has. I think that'll really impact his development, at least initially in the season. It's a shame that this game is week 6, I believe. That's right.
Yeah, it is week 6.
So this is week 6. This is a game I wish was week 16 in a sense, to have more time for Davion Taylor to acclimate himself to the pro game. Whereas I think by week 6, he's really not going to be ready out there to play against Dwayne Haskins, let alone Lamar Jackson. But it could also be a situation where it's the third quarter, the Eagles are down by 13 points. They need a spark, and Jim Schwartz just says, hell, go out there, be an athletic freak, be, 2015 Michael Kendricks, fly around there and try to make some plays. If it doesn't work out, we weren't going to win anyway.
Yeah.
X factor potential for sure. I like that you brought that up.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're both at 4-2, heading into week 7. We finally get a little easier schedule in these coming games. We got the Giants on a short week, coming on Thursday night at home. Yeah, they're riding if I'm not wrong, a 7-game win streak against the Giants. And I don't see them stopping because the Giants really did not get all that better. I know they added on the offensive line this draft, but Daniel Jones is still not good enough to beat this defense. And frankly, I don't think he has enough weapons around him besides Saquon Barkley. So that's going to be a pretty easy win for me. Heading 5-2.
Yeah, definitely a win for me. Doug Peterson on a short week is the equivalent of Andy Reid coming off a bye. It feels like that's the kind of the reverse thing for the last 2 true great coaches for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Giants, they've had their number. The last 3 seasons they've swept him. So that's 6-7-1 in the Doug Peterson era against the Giants. That first one was on the road in the Meadowlands. The Eagles still kind of figure things out in 2016, but they've dominated them since then. They've really owned the team since 2000 was the first year 2001 was the first year the Eagles had won the division. Since 1988, at the end of the late 90s, 2000, the Giants made the Super Bowl. The Eagles had their number then, knocked the Eagles out of the playoffs in 2000. But since then, it's been all Eagles in the NFC East, primarily in that Eagles-Giants matchup. So I think they own them. It's a game. I feel like the Eagles play the Giants on Thursday night every season, it seems. I think back to the game in 2018 where Saquon Barkley probably had over 200 yards from scrimmage, and they still lost by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I could see the same thing happen again. Hey, Saquon is, to me, the most talented running back in the league. I think McCaffrey's stats are better. They might be a little bit more manufactured than Saquon is. I think Saquon is the best pure running back in the game out of the backfield as a pass catcher or just as a straight running back. But again, he could have, 235 yards from scrimmage, and the Eagles could still win by 17, 20 points easily. Daniel Jones is nothing to me. Another situation akin to Dwayne Haskins, where they have a guy, they have him for 2 or 3 years, realize he's not anything, and then start the process of a rookie first-round quarterback all over again. Totally good for the Eagles that 2 teams in the division are going through that at the same time. So to me, those are 4 easy wins on the schedule automatically. And if they just split with Dallas every year, 5-1 gets them a chance to win the division and get a home playoff game. But yeah, easy one to me. I think that's a game where, if Wentz's stats are a little bit rocky coming off the last 3 games against 3 really good defenses, this is a game gets back in a groove, has 3 touchdown passes, has 45 yards rushing, making some plays with his legs, gets really in sync with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert in the middle of the field. I feel like that's an easy win, and especially when there's a 10-day break in between games. It's always great to win a Thursday game because you could just chill all weekend. You can watch the other games. It's stress-free. You can relax. And for 10 days straight, you're hearing nothing but good things about the Eagles, as opposed to if you lose a Thursday night game, you have to listen to 10 days of Eagles smack talk on the radio or on Twitter or on podcasts, articles you're reading, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the last thing we want is to hear 10 days about the Eagles losing to the Giants. So.
Oh yeah, a Giants team that is like 1-5 going into that or something.
Yeah, that would suck, and especially if the Eagles actually lose to the Ravens, that'll be a 2-game losing streak. So we know all hell's gonna break loose if they lose another one. But yeah, that should be an easy win. So that is gonna bring us to 5-2, if I'm not wrong. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 5-2. Yep. So, and now we got Dallas week, Sunday night prime time, at home this year. Last year we were at Dallas for Sunday night. This year, we're coming back home. Obviously no fans, so it doesn't really make a difference, but either way, it's Dallas week. And, what do you got for us?
What a waste to have a Sunday night game at home in Dallas week, the week before the bye. So we're all amped. It's our last football for 14 days. Wow. We're drinking in the parking lot all day going into it. Cowboys are probably at 5-2, 4-3 right there. And not to be watching it from home. No one hanging out, no one tailgating. It's a shame. But at the same, I'm confident this year. I think Dallas, they have a lot of weapons on offense. I think the Eagles are going to struggle to defend them. As much as we got Darius Slay to defend Amari Cooper. That's great. But at the same time, now they have Michael Gallup, who stepped up a lot this year. They have CeeDee Lamb, much of the chagrin of every Eagles fan out there. Eagles did not trade up for CeeDee Lamb, and he fell into the palms of Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. So it feels like a high-scoring game to me. I think Dak Prescott is way better than Eagles fans give him credit for. I certainly think Carson Wentz is better, but to me, they're both top 8-9 quarterbacks in this league. I think Dak, it's a game where I could see him shredding the Eagles up. He's played well against the Eagles in his career, other than that 37-9 victory back in 2017, Sunday Night Football in Dallas, one of my favorite games. Peterson ever, one of the highlights for me of that Super Bowl season. But I could see it being a 34-31 game. We've seen Eagles-Cowboys games in prime time go to overtime. We've seen this happen before. We saw it in 2018. We saw it in 2016 on Sunday Night Football in Dallas once again. High-scoring game. Could be a situation where it goes to overtime and the Eagles hold Dallas, and then Jake Elliott hits a game-winning field goal, or the Eagles march down the field, and that classic rubber route in the red zone where Zach Ertz goes to the post and gets a touchdown. I could definitely see a situation like this. At the very least, it's going to be an entertaining as hell game to me, and the NFL really couldn't pick a better Sunday night matchup this year. They always have one. I feel like it's a legally binding that the Eagles have to play the Cowboys on Sunday Football, at least one of the 2 games. But I'm glad that that's at home, and that's a cool element, even if Eagles fans are going to be there. The city buzzes a little bit more if Dallas is playing in Philly. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, but I do think it's an Eagles win.
Yep. I also have that as an Eagles win. And I think another interesting thing is for the past 3.5 years, the storyline coming to every Eagles-Cowboys game has been Wentz, Dak. How are these 2 going to fare in this game? But I think there's an added storyline this year with, the Cowboys taking CeeDee and us taking Jalen. So it's going to be, the comparison of these 2. How are these 2 going to play out in this game? So that'll be a cool, little added storyline. But regardless, I have them as a win. And like you said, these are 2 very good offenses. And it's going to be a bloodfest. This is going to come down to the fourth quarter, and it is just going to be who makes one less mistake. It's like in tennis, how you break serve. Whoever breaks the other person serves first is going to win. So, but yeah, that's a win, and we are 6-2 into the bye, and probably first in the division at that point.
I do want to find one stat for you that Dan Orlovsky almost booked that completely. Former backup NFL quarterback, great analyst, great Twitter follow for football fans. He had this stat today that I want to bring out. There are 4 quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 2 seasons that have more turnovers than touchdowns versus playoff teams. Mitchell Trubisky, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, and Dak Prescott. For all the talk of Wentz not being good in big games, Wentz fumbles too much, Wentz does this, Wentz doesn't do that. Carson Wentz is not on this list, and as we saw last season, I think when the chips are down, you can count on Carson Wentz, and maybe you can't count on Dak Prescott.
And yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott had 2 1,000-yard receivers and another, I think, borderline 900-yard receiver, and to top it all off, 1,000-yard running back. Carson Wentz, none of that. Practice squad receivers, and obviously he won the division. Dak didn't. So I just stopped debating that a long time ago because it's just silly to get into that debate.
It's fun though. It's silly but fun. If you're bored, there's nothing better than hopping in and blogging the boys' mentions and going wild.
Love blogging the boys. They're always they always have an interesting tweet or two. So going to the bye 6-2, and then we come out of the bye and play the Giants again. This time in the New Meadowlands. And I don't see much being different from 3 weeks ago when they came at home. It's still going to be a win for me. Just like I said, Daniel Jones is just not that good. And like I said, no weapons around him. Saquon Barkley is just all he has. Defense still not that good. Not much else to say. That's a win.
Yeah, basically just said the same crap earlier. Bad Giants team. Daniel Jones stinks. Saquon could pop off. At the same time, it's the Eagles against the Giants. I trust that offense. I trust Doug Peterson. I trust Carson Wentz. Teams coming off a bye. Any lingering issues? JP, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox. They'll have another week to rest up. Maybe that's a situation where Alshon Jeffrey comes off the pup list and is ready to go and ready to play finally. I think that's an easy win for me. Double-digit victory win, no question about it. Even on the road. Or, I keep talking about on the road and at home as if that crap even matters this year without fans in the stands, likely. Certainly in Philadelphia.
Definitely an interesting added element for this season particularly. But, regardless, I go 7-2 coming out of the bye, and now we're headed to Cleveland.
I think that's a win. I'm not really a big believer in Baker Mayfield. We saw all that hype last offseason. They acquired Odell Beckham Jr., they have Nick Chubb, they have Kareem Hunt, and they have this really talented offense. But, the coaches in minds and the guys that are calling the plays really, those guys took the fall. But I think it comes back to mostly that, Baker Mayfield may not be that good of an NFL quarterback. I don't really trust this team. I think they have disaster potential in terms of what's going in that locker room, the dysfunction of just the Cleveland Browns franchise and organization to begin with, top down for the last, 2-3 decades since they came back into the NFL in 97, 98, 99. They're the Browns. The Eagles are on the road. Doesn't really matter to me. Again, this road home dichotomy and this, turbulent situation that we're currently in feels like a win to me. I'm not going to say the Eagles are going to blow them out, but feels like a comfortable, the game they win by 10 points, but maybe feels like they win by 17.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Baker Mayfield, like you said, even with all those weapons, the fact that he couldn't produce a playoff season last year was definitely concerning. And blaming the coach, I mean, I know that Freddie Kitchens wasn't that good of a play caller, but if you have all those weapons around you and you have to blame the coach, then there's something wrong with the quarterback, because having 2 Pro Bowl receivers and a Pro Bowl running back should really almost guarantee you a playoff spot. But yeah, that's a win. They're just not that good. I don't see them improving from last year either. So yeah, 8-2, and we're coming back home to play the Seahawks on Monday night. Now this is a matchup that always irks me because for some reason we just can't contain Russell Wilson. I mean, we saw it
He's the
last year in
second
the
best
play.
player in the NFL to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's absolutely the best because he can beat you on the ground and in the air. And it's just so hard to bring him down. And now
Highest football IQ out there.
definitely. And now he finally has an arsenal that he hadn't had for his first 4 years in the league. You know, he finally has 3 really good receivers.
Don't
And
get me started on DK Metcalf and
yeah,
him not being a midnight green. I don't even want to talk.
yeah, that was a pick that really bothered me the night that they took Arcega-Whiteside. I was trying so hard to convince myself that he was better, up until the season started, and I knew that it was a sham. They should have taken Metcalf, but how he does.
For
Yeah,
better and frequently
yeah,
for worse. He has the ring. The ring can talk, but doesn't mean I'm not going to be critical of him. And while he may be the best in the league at having leverage in trades, maneuvering around with the salary cap, being great at signing veteran free agents to keep deals, the draft is what is the most important part of being in a front office, being a general manager in NFL, and the Eagles really haven't done that well drafting when Howie Roseman has had the reins of the franchise.
So yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to fire him for not having DK Metcalf, but not the most optimistic about Howie in general, and definitely not optimistic about this game until the Eagles beat the Seahawks for the first time in a dozen or so years. I cannot pick them to beat pick them to beat Seattle until I actually see it with my 2 eyes. Doug Peterson hasn't beat them. They played them, every season that he's been here, 2016, 2017, maybe not 2018, but last year they did in the playoffs, obviously. And, they just have their number. I think Russell Wilson, as I said, is the second best player in the league for Patrick Mahomes. Football IQ is off the charts. I just think they have the Eagles' number. Doesn't matter that it's in Philly as opposed to Seattle to me. Again, without that, added fan boost of being a Monday Night Football game, that really goes against the Eagles' favor because that's an atmosphere where I really think the Eagles' defense could have locked in. Playing on Monday night, playing with those fans behind them, playing against one of the best players in the league, but it's just not going to work out that way, unfortunately, with the Eagles. I think their home versus away defensive splits are going to be a little bit off this year without that fan backing, and that's a shame, especially with the quality of offense they have coming into town between Baltimore, Seattle, New Orleans, Green Bay. It's a shame, but we're in the toughest stretch of the season right now, this 3-game stretch. They're not looking too hot for me right here. I have this as an 0-3 stretch, so to kick things off, have a loss to Seattle. That brings them to 8-3.
8-3
for me.
Yep. Yeah, no, they just can't beat Seattle. They went 0-2 against them last year. And for whatever reason, they just can't find a way to take down Russell Wilson. So yeah, that's a loss. And the other added element to this is going to be Jadeveon Clowney, because we heard a week ago that he was possibly going to re-sign with the Seahawks. Now this week we're hearing talk about him possibly wanting to play for a contender, and that contender may be the Eagles. So depending on what side he's on, it might swing this game. And also with what happened last year with Jadeveon Clowney knocking out Carson Wentz, that might be another added element to this game. So
I think fate has it that the only way they can beat Russell Wilson is if they have Clowney on their team and he sacks Wilson. Not knocks him out of the game, nothing dirty, just they can't beat him unless they they take one of his players
Mm-hmm.
and then they could finally inflict that impact on him that, I'm sure they have stacked him in his career, but I wouldn't be shocked if they had 0 sacks against him. I just have these visions in my head of all the time of him just running around in a circle and Vinny Curry falling on his ass and just, keeping every single darn play alive.
Yeah, I think what really did it for me was 3 years ago. They were up in Seattle. Yeah, and that was the game where Doug Baldwin threw a touchdown to Russell Wilson, and that pretty much eclipsed everything. He had pretty much ran for a touchdown, threw a touchdown, and ended up catching a touchdown. So, I, yeah, he's been unbeatable for us, and I don't see much changing this year either. So yeah,
He's always healthy too. You're never going to get a game where he's not quarterbacking either. It's not like you're playing, Wentz or, they play the Packers the next week. For all we know, Rodgers banged up for his career. He's older. He might not play. Russell Wilson's an Iron Man. Whatever happens with this Eagles season, whether they play, this game goes on. If there is a Week 12 in the NFL this year, the Eagles will be playing Russell Wilson, and more likely than not, they will lose.
So yeah, 8-3, and then heading into the next few, we have a few more tough games. Obviously, this time the Packers in Lambeau. You already said this is a loss for you. This is a Packers team that we beat last year, sheerly off of short fields. We forced an Aaron Rodgers fumble that gave us about a 20-yard field. Then Mason Crosby had an out-of-bounds kick. We got the ball at the 40. Miles Sanders had a long kick return that gave us the ball across the 50. So we had a lot of good opportunities in that game. And I can't say that they would have won that game if they didn't have all those short fields. But regardless, they pulled out that win. I don't think it's going to be the same outcome this year. I think they have. I have this game as a loss against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is going to be really pissed off this year with what happened in the draft, and the last thing you want to do is play a mad Aaron Rodgers. So that's a loss for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about the attitude Rodgers is going to bring in the 2020 season. He's still, sometimes the best player on the planet, while I still have Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson are, better overall. But on a given day, Aaron Rodgers can still be the best quarterback in the NFL. He's pissed off. If he's on fire. I can't see the Eagles getting as much turnover luck as they did this past year in 2019 playing. That was a Thursday night game in Lambeau. Back in Lambeau again, it probably helps that the fans aren't there, so that works out for the Eagles. Takes away some of that Lambeau mystique and that atmosphere there that plays into the Packers' hands. At the same time, they're not going to have that type of turnover luck. It just seems like a game of the struggle. They seemed like an underrated team last year, the Packers, despite going 13-3 and making the NFC Championship game somehow. I don't view them as like this true Super Bowl contender, but I do think that they will win their division this year. And, even if the Eagles don't win right now, they might have a chance to beat them again come playoff time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, like you said, if they get them again in the playoffs, it's going to be a win for them. But regardless, I see this as a very close game. Again, going into the fourth quarter. Yeah, this is going to be a Packers win. So heading into next week, we're at 8-4, and now we got the Saints coming at home. Yeah, I think Drew Brees is just so bad in December. I don't know what it's been for him, but he just hasn't fared that well in December, and especially coming into a cold environment. Fans or not, it's still going to be cold, and from indoor stadium to probably 30-degree weather. I don't think it's going to fare too well for him. So I have that as an Eagles win, shockingly. They finally beat the Saints after maybe 4 years. They beat them in 2016 or 2015. So yeah. So I think they finally beat them here. And this is a game that I thought was a loss, but for some reason my gut's telling me that they're going to win this game.
Yeah, akin to my thought process about taking the Eagles when they're playing Seattle. During the Doug Peterson era, the Eagles have not beat the New Orleans Saints. They've lost in the playoffs. They had an embarrassing showing in 2018. Until I actually see the Eagles and Doug Peterson beat Sean Payton and the Saints, I can't pick them to win. I know this game is at home. I'm so glad it's not, on the road in the Superdome. It'd be even worse if there were fans in the Superdome. But removing the Saints from that clear, maybe even questionably, like ethically wrong home field advantage they have, even putting them in a cold weather situation, making them a little bit more vulnerable. I still have as a Saints win. They have so much talent on offense and still pretty good on defense as well. Seems like a game where, Wentz just struggles against them. Could be a situation where, he has a game where he has, one interception and 2 picks and a forced fumble that gets picked up. Whereas I see the Seattle loss being in that classic close in the fourth quarter, gut-wrenching, makes you want to throw up type loss. This seems like probably a little bit more of a easier win for New Orleans. And given that this would be, for my predictions, their third straight loss going into December, going from 8-2 and 8-5, this loss against the Saints specifically too would be one that sends this town into a frenzy. Everyone's freaking out. Everyone wants everyone on the team cut and fired, traded. Be all hell broke loose. Twitter would be a disaster. But if this season goes on as planned, I think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. And after they come out of that 3-game stretch, the last thing you want are injured players, because you already lost 3 games. And if you lose a key player for the last 3 games, I think that's what's really going to send Twitter over the top. And especially with a Cowboys matchup coming up, potentially for the division, you really want to have a healthy team. So with that being said, we are at 8-5, and now they're playing a revamped Cardinals team in Arizona.
Yeah, I do like Kyler. I think the expectations will be high for him this year. The last 2 years, we've seen a first-round quarterback who is in his second year in a specific system with Patrick Mahomes and then Lamar Jackson take home MVP trophies. I feel like for a lot of people, Kyler is their quote-unquote dark horse choice. I feel like so many people have him as their dark horse choice that doesn't even count as a dark horse choice at this point, given how much the hype is there. I'm not the biggest believer in Cliff Kingsbury to begin with, so I do have some apprehension there, though I think Kyler is quite good. At the same time, coming off that 3-game losing streak, to me, there's no way I see Doug Peterson, a coach of his caliber, losing 4 games in a row at this point in his career, going on the road again against inferior opponent, inferior coaching specifically. I see that as an Eagles win. Straighten the ship a little bit, sit away from these rocky waters. 9-5, going to Dallas next week, season on the line. That's what you love.
Yep, for sure. A win here for me. I would say that the Cardinals had probably the best offseason in the NFL with the sheer talent they added from DeAndre Hopkins to Isaiah Simmons in the draft. But like you said, inferior coach. I see Cliff Kingsbury as a Sean McVay. I mean, everybody loves like a young coach who's like a mastermind, but they're really not. Neither of them are really that good. And yeah, that should be a win. And so 9-5. Now probably the biggest game of the season at Dallas. This is going to be the game where I think Carson Wentz finally proves that he's leagues beyond Dak Prescott. I think he finally has a game to separate himself. If he can win this game by 2 scores, I think he'll finally cement himself as a top 5 quarterback. And I do think that they're going to win this game and win the division by winning. So yeah, with that being said, 10-5 for me, and the division sealed.
Depending on how the season goes, especially if the Eagles and Cowboys are close here, this could be one of those MVP showcase games for Wentz. If he goes off and has 4 touchdowns, 375 yards in the air, Eagles on, while it's a 4 o'clock game, it'll still be that America's game of the week. Everyone across the country will be watching it. It's obviously the Eagles-Cowboys rivalry, so even football fans, even those that aren't in the area, are even more hyped about this game. It always comes down to Eagles-Dallas in week 15, 16, 17 every season. And if Wentz can ball out, building off a season where, I have them winning division, going 11-5 overall, if things go well for him, I could see him being in the MVP race. And maybe this is the game where he truly shows to the collective football community, the whole world of NFL fans out there, that he is a premier quarterback or an elite quarterback in this league. And depending on if, Lamar Jackson is in the spectacular year, people are tired about talking about Patrick Mahomes. Maybe this is the game where people are saying Carson Wentz might be the MVP of the league right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, winning that game would go a long way for him. And if they can come out with that win at 10-5, the division will be sealed, and then they'll go on to play Washington next week, capping the season at home. This, depending on how the rest of the NFC plays out, could be a meaningless game, possibly playing for playoff positioning, but I really don't think 11-5 will get them that number 1 seed. And again, this year, only one team will be getting a first round bye, so I don't think 11-5 gets them that first seed. But regardless, they got Washington, like I said, for week 1, not a good team. Still very raw on the offensive side, and that's a win for me. So they capped the season off at 11-5.
My prediction for this game is that Jalen Hurts scores his first touchdown of his NFL career in a meaningless victory for the Eagles.
Yep. That would definitely be something fun to see if they bench Carson and give Jalen his first start. Again, depending on how the rest of the conference plays out. So we could potentially see a lot of Jalen Hurts action this game. So with that being said, both of our schedule predictions end in 11-5. I know we flip-flopped on a couple of games, but the outcome was the same. And that'll get us to, I would say, the 3rd seed.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3 seed for this team this year. Even in a normal year, I don't think 11-5 is enough for a bye, but specifically now in the 17 playoff format, I don't think that gets you the number 1 seed. I could see a team like Green Bay, maybe because of their schedule, or New Orleans getting that number 1 seed. But I could see the Eagles thing Dallas in round 1 third time this season. That would be awesome. Definitely see Eagles win there, but given the talent of this team, it's probably more likely than not that they, I would think, lose in the second round this year, just because of, there is a talent dearth on the team as much as we love the team. And, there is cause for optimism. If they went and made the NFC Championship game, I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, I think more likely than not, they probably, go out in round 2. But, if Carson Wentz is able to get his first playoff victory this year, it's still kind of a plus year for me in my book, a win, even if it doesn't bring that Super Bowl win.
I think the key to getting them further in January and possibly into February is just going to be staying healthy. It's just
absolutely
because they have the talent, and I don't think there's any excuse to say we didn't have enough talent, because you have a completely revamped wide receiver core, you have brand new cornerbacks. You just got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So with that being said, 11-5 is our final prediction, and that's assuming if there is a season. But that's a pretty good finish. That's going to be the second most wins in Doug Peterson's career, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 7 and then 13, 9, 10.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep. Awesome.
Great playoff berth.
Yeah. So with that being said, Shamus, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, man.
I know we were trying to work out the kinks for almost a month, but it was fun to finally talk to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And listen, if you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome.
Sure, just hit me up.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. Take care.